Welcome to Buns, Burgers, and Big Ideas, the go-to podcast for aspiring and seasoned leaders in the quick service restaurant industry. Each week, we serve up actionable insights and proven strategies to help you lead smarter, build stronger teams, and elevate operations. Whether you're taking your first steps into leadership or refining your expertise, we're here to fuel your growth and spark big ideas. Let's dig in.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Buns, Burgers, and Big Ideas. I'm your host, Riley Shine, with Eric Jaworski, and today we have our special guest, Kay Wadsworth. How are you, Kay?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Doing so well. Kay is a friend of our organization. She's been to a couple different trainings of ours, has stepped in and helped with a bunch of different things, and we're just glad to have you. You're the Vice President of Illinois Bank and Trust, and we're excited to pick your brain on some taxes and some money-saving habits and all those good things. So thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So we're at that time where a lot of people are filing their taxes, right? They're expecting some big incomes, right? Like, I love tax season. Well, I used to not like tax season. I used to actually have to pay in.
Me too.
Right? And then I got married, and my wife, Nikki, she's like, oh, man, taxes. And I'm like, no, you don't want to file because you always have to pay. But all of a sudden, we started getting refunds, right? Like $2,000, $3,000, $5,000. You have more kids, you get more tax credits, right? So more money we all of a sudden get to spend. But I was hoping you might want to share some things around, like, what would you recommend doing with some of those refunds, like with that money that we're getting back?
Sure. Well, first I was just going to comment. You mentioned how you were used to not getting refunds, and then when you got married, you were. So that's dictated a lot of it also by your withholdings that you claim. So when you start on with your employer throughout the year, you can adjust your withholdings based on expected credits. So if you don't want to have to pay in, the trick there is to claim zero withholdings, and then you'll end up getting a larger refund in the end. Some people like to manage it so they're break even.
Sure.
So, if you don't want to have to pay in, or you want to get a refund back, depending on whatever works best for your household, you can, play around with that figure to get yourself to the right number. But you talk about things to do with the refunds for those who are fortunate enough to get refunds. There are lots of options, and obviously when we talk about financial stability being a key component to overall wellness, if you will, and as an employer, you guys want your people to be happy when they come to work, and financial stability is a key component of that. Always having a target for yourself in terms of saving a portion of it. It's no different than when you might be counseling your kids or a good friend on moderation and or the discussion between needs and wants.
Because I know what I shouldn't be spending my money on.
Right?
But I still do.
Right.
I still do.
Exactly. Well, and I think it's also good to recognize it's okay to celebrate. You maybe had a great year or met some goals on your own. So don't be so restrictive that you feel like you're never able to have fun with it, but set a target for yourself. However that works into your overall framework. But obviously, if you have debt already that's at higher interest rates than what would be market, or even just debt that's been lingering that you need to take care of, set a goal for yourself to make a big payment or to alleviate a monthly payment that you have. So that's a great, those are just, go into it thinking that you're going to do something good for yourself, that's going to play into the future, not just a one-time thing like a trip or a fancy meal or a pair of shoes or whatever the situation might be.
Well, we do. I mean, we all like the fancy shoes. So you talked about kind of having that plan. And what's funny, I think I don't know if it's just me or the way I grew up, but I always feel like talking finances is a little taboo, right? Like, we don't go talk to people around our finances. So I think sometimes it can be hard, especially like when Nikki and I first started really combining our finances, right? Like, now it's like, okay, you're spending your money on this, I'm going to spend my money, but it's our money, right? And sometimes we have conflicting plans. So as you talk about like how to budget some of those things, would you have recommendations? Like, how often would you talk to, say, your significant other or your family or your, you know what I mean?
Depends on how accountable you want to
know, right? Well, you talked about
So,
the little
right.
expenses, and you talked about the little things
Right.
earlier. I thought it was a really cool point. You brought up, who'd you say, your mother-in-law said
Yes.
we spend $13 extra, it's $5,000, or
Right.
$13.77?
Yeah, it was just under $15 a day. The best way to lose or to waste $5,000 a year is to spend about $15 a day. So whatever that means in your life, a couple extra fancy coffees, a quick fix on your favorite online retailer, however that might be, but that really adds up.
Yeah.
And I think we all probably have some cleansing to do that we could accomplish, but particularly, I think assessing what your overall financial position is and your goals, whether you're an individual or a family unit, is critical. And if you know that you are maybe paying a higher rate than market, and you don't, maybe have a way to refinance to a better rate, certainly retiring those debts
those payments.
right. Yeah. So
Okay.
get yourself out of those situations where you're paying more than you should be.
So on those payments, I just have a question.
Yeah.
Personally, I like the avalanche method more than the snowball method.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have one that you prefer? And for the listeners, avalanche debt payoff is starting with the highest interest rate balance and then attacking that one with your leftover income and going down from there, where the snowball is you start with the lowest principal balance and then you work up from there.
It's a new concept for me. I'm learning here today. For me, I would probably choose the same as you, just because it would, knowing that if you're paying more than you should be in interest. But, you also have to just factor in your obligations, right? You can't just say, well, this one's at, 10% and this one's at 5% interest. If you still have a monthly obligation.
Right, the minimum. Right. Yeah, you still pay the
need
minimum.
to pay.
Absolutely.
Yep. So if you're talking about if you had maybe two different installment debts or credit cards where you didn't have to make principal payments, I would definitely choose the one with
the higher interest.
That would be me. But
Yeah. Mathematically, it makes sense. I just know some people like to see big or small wins even, right? So let's say I have $500 left on this one. Well, let's pay that one off just to...
It's easy to get to that.
There's value there too.
Yeah. I can see it both ways, but I would say mathematically it makes more sense for the higher interest.
Okay. No, I appreciate it.
So going back to kind of that refund part of it, so you talked about having fun and you talked about kind of saving and what are some goals that we can have? Because I'm going to tell you, it's in our world, the reality of our business, right? We have a lot of people living paycheck to paycheck. So, from an honest conversation around I barely have money in savings or I barely can pay my debt. Now you want me to save 6 months of my income?
Right.
That can sound crazy to some people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think the best starting point, if you're feeling that you're in a paycheck to paycheck situation, is to really sit down and budget. So go through your credit card statement or your bank statement, identify all those recurring payments that are pulling out of your account or
Netflix,
charging. Right, exactly.
The Hulu,
right.
the Amazon Prime.
Right.
Yeah.
Or sometimes more obscure subscriptions that you don't remember, that you signed up for, Game Changer for your kids' baseball team or, a wrestling team. I don't know. We found all sorts of things that we just don't use. $10 a month adds up, especially when it's happening, multiple times a month. So, but there are lots of tools online. The internet's a great thing in many ways. So you can go find free budgeting tools. You can use a basic Excel spreadsheet or a piece of paper and pen. I usually start with a list of what are our known costs. You have your cell phone bill, you have your heat, your electric, whatever your car payment, your rent, your mortgage, whatever your situation might be, student loan payments, other just automatically recurring things. And then on top of that, you have expenses that might change by month, food cost or a clothing budget or, everybody gets their hair cut or, things like that. Be honest with yourself and I always like to round up, be a little conservative. And then on the other side, or, in a column, however you like to see it, how you like to learn, how much are you taking in a month? I typically look at it on a monthly basis, but, if your income fluctuates throughout the year based on, a school schedule or something where maybe it's not the same, then take an average for the year, and then you can multiply your monthly expenses by 12. But take a look at it, and you might be surprised. You maybe realize that you have more free income than you realize. Yeah. But when you don't sit down and look at the figures, and then we're doing the $14 a day that adds up to $5,000 a year, all of a sudden you may end up with a credit card balance that you don't even know how it got there. Yeah. So
as I was growing up through my mom worked 2-3 jobs, right? Like we didn't have money. Like it just wasn't a thing. I didn't know we were poor, but apparently we were. But as I've grown up and I started making more money, I always just wanted the next shiny thing. Right, like it was kind of that keeping up with the Joneses type conversation, and I feel like a lot of our team members and the people, and myself included in this conversation.
Me too.
Like all of a sudden, I remember in 2018, I got a raise, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to go get myself a new car. Right, when I could have got a used one that was probably half the price, if not the same quality. So like mentally, it can be really challenging to not want those things.
Yep.
Right, but yet we sit and we live paycheck to paycheck on some things. But we have the expenditures, like you said, that we can cut out. So Nikki and I sat down a few years back and we said, okay, let's really take a look at where we're spending our money and what we want to have. Once we created some goals, it just made that conversation a lot easier. Now all of a sudden we're having a lot more dialogue around, hey, how many things can I buy off of Amazon versus what I maybe shouldn't be buying? And I'm going to tell you, like having those conversations, it's eye-opening. It makes it so much easier as a like you said, family unit. I mean, we've got kids, right? They want to be in this, and like the school fees and the lunches and like that stuff just doesn't stop.
Right.
So starting with our basics, I mean, it might sound obvious, but I don't know if we always start there.
Yeah. So. No, probably not. And I think, you commented on something that's really important, when it's not just your money, right? If you have other people in your household that you're, balancing expectations with, it's critical to have those conversations. Some units, some families, they just find they can't manage money together. My husband and I do manage our money together. He would say he doesn't have access to it. So sorry, honey.
Right.
But that's my way of managing it. Just kidding. Just kidding. I did not kick him out of the Amazon Prime account yet, but it is critical to have those discussions because if you aren't aligned, and that doesn't mean that it's an issue, but maybe there are other ways to do it. So maybe then what you would do is set up a separate account, and not to overcomplicate things too, because I know sometimes, bank accounts can get tricky if you're adding more accounts and people aren't managing them, and maybe there's fraud or things can kind of slip through the cracks. But for us, what works is we have a handful of accounts at the same institution, and I have instructed my employer to direct X amount of dollars per paycheck into an account, and it's crazy how quickly that can add up.
Oh yeah.
So then it's and we have it kind of directed for us by our children, an account for each, and then if there is something special that they need to do, that
I like that.
The others aren't at that point yet. So, our 7th grader has a class trip coming up, and if there's a payment for that, then we take the money from his account, or however that works out. But the money's still there, so in an emergency, you still have access to it. Yeah. So it's not like it's not available for you, but it is a visual way and an automated way of it being kind of taken out of your day-to-day spending.
It makes total sense. I don't know if I don't do that anymore, but I used to. So I'm thinking about like opposite, right? We said if you spend $13, it can cost $5,000. But like, what if you even put away $7, right? Every paycheck or once a week or whatever that might be. All of a sudden you're
adds up.
Yeah, you're at $2,000 at the end of the year.
Well, yeah, like $10 a day is about $300 a month. So it's a lot of money.
Yeah, it definitely can add up. I like what you said about the budgeting tools. I think sometimes we just don't take the time to really go through our finances. Where are we spending the money? Where did that? I'm going to hit on the roundup thing because you said you round up sometimes. But like if I really want something, I'll go to the family like, well, it's $500, not $1,000. So now I'm rounding down when I want it, right? But if I don't want you to
marketing.
have it, yeah. So I think just being very honest with our budgets and our expenditures goes a long way. So,
well, I think
Riley,
part of that learning too. You mentioned sitting down before the month, getting all of your expenses, all your fixed things, and what money you're bringing in, and that's great, and that's cool. I can do that all day long. My problem is the accountability side at the end of the month when I reconcile that. That's when I'm like, oh, this budget is blown.
Right.
That category is above. That one's over budget. That one's, oh, look, I saved $10 on gas.
Right.
So you're saying that you don't hold yourself accountable?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I can all day say, oh, yeah, you know what? Next month I'll spend $100 a week on groceries. I can do that. But then at the end of the month, I don't look and say, oh, I did spend $400. Like I don't double check that I actually stuck to my budget. And that's, I feel like, a big part of it.
Yeah. I know that, most financial institutions have like budgeting metrics that kind of overlay, or like a credit card company will have that where they will categorize your spending into buckets for you. And you can, in lots of the programs, go in and set a target. And then when you log in, it would be a visual, at least for you, of like a green pass, a red fail, or something like that. But, you could also give yourself an accountability partner, set a goal for yourself. And I think too, when you think about and really put pen to paper about, do I really need the Starbucks drink or, those things on a daily basis, or would I prefer to have, a bigger item, a shinier object, if you will. I really think, it's about having that honest discussion with yourself. I drove the same car for 12 years and it wasn't fancy and, but it worked and it felt really good to not have a car payment. And when it became no longer economical to keep the car, then is when I thought about getting rid of it. So, I think a lot of it too is if you're in a situation where you have someone to mentor who is maybe younger than you or in a different situation, like kids or family members, those are great life skills that you can pass on to other people too. So, our kids don't really love it when we talk about moderation and, it's no different than saying you can't have, 4 scoops of ice cream, hold yourself back to 1 or 2 scoops. And it's kind of the same thing with your money. Really, what's your end game? What's your goal?
And it can be hard. It can be really hard to say no to the kids. Oh man, because I don't know, Lily has this lily lip thing that she used to do, and her whole face, and it's like whatever you want, honey. Right. So we have to learn that with each other, with our kids, family, spouses, ourselves. Right.
Yeah.
Like I said, I always like the new shiny thing, and now I learned that it doesn't always have to be the new shiny thing.
Right.
You also mentioned haircuts, so I want to throw this out here because we were talking how did we save money, right? So COVID hit, right, 2020, and Nikki started cutting my hair, and to this day she still cuts my hair. So about 3 months ago, we were in a spot where I needed a haircut, so I went out to a Great Clips or whatever or Sports Clips or whatever one. It was $30.
It's crazy.
I'm Nikki, never mind. I'm cut my hair, right? And so I think we can sometimes we're afraid to cut some things, but I'm going to tell you, when you're really looking to squeeze, there's a lot of things that we do that we can squeeze out of there.
And that only happens though when you sit down and really look where your money is going and do that budget. Is when those trends are going to pop out to you.
Well, especially a boy's hair. A girl's might be a little different, right? But because my daughters probably won't want me cutting their hair.
Probably not. But but there are ways to save. You don't have to be. And I think setting that example too for others in your household about, hey, I really like doing XYZ, getting my hair colored or having the highlights, but I'm saving over here. This is how I'm going to justify that so that it's not impactful, but I can still, enjoy what it is. I mean, everybody works hard. We know you guys are hard workers. So, not saying that if everything feels like you're never being rewarded or seeing the fruits of your labor, then that kind of takes some of the joy out of it. But finding out what's really important,
Yeah.
you know, so.
It's great because I feel like there's times where, and myself included, like where you're just drowning, right? And you have no one to talk to. You don't know what to do. So I think just knowing that like the banks will help you, right? Like you guys will have those conversations with you. Like, so how would I approach you? How would I go in and be like, I suck at money, right? Help me, right?
I have to hide money from myself.
Is that just what I say?
Yeah.
Do I just walk into the bank and be like, I suck?
I suck.
Yeah, I'm terrible. Yeah, you know, there are definitely ways that the, you know, banks can help out. You know, one of the biggest ways that, you know, we see folks squander money
please.
on accident is through fees, you know, by not you know, by having overdrafts.
Sure.
You know, those can, now there's, you know, regulations in place where those are being kind of moderated and changed a bit, but you know, those are really, that really breaks my heart to see people, you know, wasting money on that when, you know, there are ways to set up overdraft protection lines or automated transfers between maybe a savings account and a checking account. So if you do happen to, you know, kind of mess up the timing on something, there's ways to mitigate that so that you're not getting hit with those fees. But you can go in too and have discussions about, you know, for some people it's spending. You know, you can have with along the lines of an overdraft, you know, you can have debit cards restricted so that you can't spend money you don't have.
See, that's what I was wondering, right? Like, because if I know I'm bad and I am at it, right? Like, how do I really get the help to get me out of it? Because once you're in it, you're just like, I feel like you're in it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, you see those stories about people sticking their credit cards in a block of ice, or
That's my credit cards.
right? I mean, I'm not sure with online shopping these days that that's as relevant, but you know,
that doesn't help though. The online shopping does not help.
It doesn't help. It's too easy, and then they remember your card for you.
I was just gonna say I've done pretty well recently with not carrying my credit cards with me. I like personal journey. Like I'm trying to do better about that, just because I'm learning more about my financial health. But I need to get rid of them on Amazon.
Right.
They're still saved on that sucker. And it's so tempting. And it's so easy. Just click.
Right.
Done.
Yeah. It is definitely instant gratification. Then the box shows up at your door and you don't remember what you ordered.
Yeah, totally. Right. Well, I'm not the ordering person as much. Well, I say that, but who knows? We won't ask Nikki. I want to ask a little bit too about just like personal loans and just like payday loans and things like that. The cash places, right? They, depending on where you live, they're on every corner sometimes, right? And they just scream at you like, "Hey, I can have my money now." What do you recommend, or how do you stay away from those things? Because ultimately, I know they charge way too much.
Right.
Yeah.
Stay away.
But
no,
I really
no,
need
it's
the
not
money.
that right.
Yeah.
I know it's not that easy. So
because something hits us, right?
Right.
We got a fine or a fee, or our car breaks down.
Right.
I mean, like these things naturally happen.
right, they do. So to the extent, you know, let's say you have a car repair that's emergent, right? You can't, you have to have your car, and you know, if you don't have a credit card or another way to, you know, bridge the gap, then you know there sometimes aren't a ton of options.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, planning for emergencies and having a credit card that has some availability for an emergency would be a good idea. But payday loans, they're making their money off of charging you a fee. Same thing with cash checking places. They're making their money off of taking, you know, a percentage of your paycheck. You guys have the pay cards that you offer. So if for some reason someone can't get a bank account, you know, maybe you had something in the past, or you know, poor credit or something happened, you know, the pay card is a great option so that you know you don't have to waste hard-earned dollars on paying a check cashing place. And then I would also suggest, you know, don't be afraid to ask again. You know, go into the bank, just be honest and say, hey, I'm really trying to get a bank account. I have this on my past history. What are your recommendations, depending on what caused the issue in the first place? Because some of those things, they drop off, and sometimes they can be mitigated, or, you know, with, you know, reasons you can move beyond it, right, and get yourself to an account that, you know, a bank account. but they're just making money off of you. So it's really best to avoid them.
Maybe walk
If
to
you don't
work
have
for a
to.
week if you
Walk
can.
to work, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
they just do. They have
get a
such high
ride.
interest rates.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah. Obviously, it's hard to borrow money from family, right? And we don't always recommend that.
Right.
But I would try almost every other approach before you go to those types of places.
Yeah. And if you aren't ever sure what, if you're entertaining a payday loan or a different kind of institution that isn't maybe a bank, a true bank, you can always call up the bank and ask what is a average interest rate for a car loan, or just to kind of give yourself a range, so that you know if the rate you're paying is reasonable.
Because they can just take advantage of you too sometimes.
Right.
Some of those. Eric, when you talking about, you saw like a interest rate for a car loan like 30% or something like that.
Oh man, I was thinking about the idea of getting
crazy.
a different car because my car has some issues. Right, I'm just driving the car. Right, and I saw those interest rates. I'm like, I'm good. I'm just gonna stay. Right, I think it's not a big deal.
But they can tack that on and if you have that bad credit. So I feel like that's what you're kind of telling the audience is find out what those things are that you can maybe do to improve it.
Right.
Or, find a different, bank that will maybe.
Someone who will work with you.
Yeah.
Someone who you can see. I know it's easier to apply online and, have a bot. That's kind of our culture. Right? It's easier to order your pizza online or whatever it might be. But, go in and have a conversation with someone, develop a relationship with, and they can give you advice. They can, if you submit a loan application, they'll pull your credit and they can talk you through, why your credit might, where your credit couldn't be improved, so.
And well, those are all great things to know. And I know as we look to wrap up, we might you're going to have to come back. Like this is like, I feel like we're just starting at like the surface on this. I was thinking about, and as we were kind of putting this together, like how does this relate to leadership, right? Because the podcast itself is a lot about leadership and building those abilities. And I think just there's two things that we want, right? And we want to know where our time is being spent and where our money is being spent. We work really hard for our money.
Right.
So let's just not give it away, right? Let's be a little bit more financially stable. Let's budget, right? Like I get it, right? You said the free budget, like it's painful. It's painful to really see where your money is going. But the more honest we were, like the more honest I was with myself and the family as we were doing these things, it just becomes so much easier, right? To really talk about these things and know where the struggle is and be on the same page. So I really appreciate everything you shared today.
Absolutely. Happy to be here anytime.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah. So when we talk, maybe as we wrap this up, what would be like your one key takeaway?
I think if you don't manage your money for yourself, someone or something will manage it for you. So
I like that. Yeah. I like that.
So, it just really, if you aren't paying attention to where it's going, it'll take care of itself. It finds its way other places. So I really
and not
think,
in your pocket.
Right. No, not normally in your pocket. But I really think it has to be you have to play an active role in managing your money. And sometimes, we've all been there. I've been there myself. You maybe had a couple extra expenses or a little more fun than normal because you had a trip and you just don't want to look at your credit card statement, right? You're just like, I don't want to look, But you really need to just, rip off the Band-Aid and figure it out, put together a plan. But really, you need to spend the time to pay attention to it. So.
Well, thank you.
Awesome. No, thank you very much, Kay, for the time. And we'll definitely have you back, I think. This is just a good conversation and good for our team and our listeners, too, just to listen to some, smart money moves and money habits that we can keep on. So thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us on Buns, Burgers, and Big Ideas. We hope today's episode inspired fresh ideas for your leadership journey. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and keep learning with us as we continue to explore leadership in the QSR world. Until next time, take care and lead well.